Call this meeting to order. Ms. Pizzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Today's invocation is led by Councilman Casto.
Let's stand, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful place we call home. We ask you for guidance and wisdom as we do the work of the city. Help us to make decisions tonight to make Panama City Beach a better place to live, work, and play. We pray for all our city employees and their families. We also pray for this council next week as we travel to our League of Cities conference. Thank you for all your many blessings. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, community announcements. Tonight at 7 p.m. at Aaron Besant Park is our second to last summer concert series concert with Ben Lofton and the family. On August 10th through 11th at Frank Brown Park, we are welcoming the World Sports League softball tournament. On August 12th, it is the 54th anniversary of the city of Panama City Beach. I'm told that the 55th anniversary is the Emerald anniversary, so maybe we can do something special for that one. On August 15th at 7 p.m., we continue our summer concert series with My Fever at Aaron Besant Park. August 16th through 18th, we welcome the Global Sports League USSA baseball tournament. And finally, August 22nd, Thursday at 9 a.m. is our next city council meeting here at City Hall. Okay. Next up is the approval of meeting minutes.
Motion approved.
Second.
Second. Ms. Pizzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Next up is the approval of the agenda and/or deletions.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to remove number 3 on the regular agenda, the ordinance on right-of-way drilling. That one just needs a little bit more time in the oven.
Okay. You like things fully baked up here? That makes sense. Anything else? Any deletions from the dais? Okay, Ms. Pizzoni, please call roll.
And we have a
Or
Motion to approve.
Yep, thank you.
Second.
Ms. Pizzoni?
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Next up is public comment on the consent and/or non-agenda business. When you come up, please state your name, address me, the chair, or the council as a whole. Is there any comment on the consent or non-agenda items?
Good afternoon. My name's Patricia Shannon. I live at 513 Dogwood Street in Bahama Beach. I believe Mr. Register is my councilman. I have an issue that I hope would help the city as a whole with regard to nuisance vehicles. There is a family that lives across the street from me that continues to have an objectionable vehicle that is parked in their yard and is not of use. I have worked with Mr. Smith at Code Enforcement extensively to try to get the vehicle out of there because it does not benefit the appearance of the neighborhood. Code Enforcement's hands are tied because the vehicle will actually start. However, the vehicle will not run. It is not movable. I would like the city, through the course of action that it takes, to consider amending Code Enforcement's ordinance from the vehicle needing to merely turn over and start to being able to be drivable. If that were the case, the vehicle across the street from me would then be able to be removed by the city. I don't know where it goes from here or what it takes to accomplish such a change, but that is my request today, and I thank you all for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Usually we go through all the public comments and then we'll respond.
I'm sorry?
Usually we go through all the public comments and then we will respond.
Thank you.
Yeah. Further public comment? Remember, this is for consent and non-agenda items.
Right. I'm Bernie Kelly. I live at 505 Petrel Street since 1979. I want to say a thank you for putting the city council meetings on YouTube, and a thank you for these I can hear. Thank you very much, council.
All right, thank you, Bernie. And thanks to our fine IT folks for getting all that working.
That's awesome.
Okay, Mr. Beck.
My
I will
name
just-
is Captain-
Mr. Beck, I'll just remind you, as there have been issues in the past, please avoid threatening behavior. Please keep it calm.
Yes, sir. I would like to say that the only reason we're having any type of issues is your ignorance and failure to pay attention to my words, which is all I have. So, you know, every time you get up there and you start talking and you say stuff that ain't true, and then you run away without facing me, and I don't get to take in and face any of the lies that y'all pump out against me, it's putting my life in danger. It's not that I want it to be like that, but y'all are the ones choosing to come against the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And right now, you know, I've got all this evidence of criminal acts in the civil courts that come directly against the Constitution and Bill of Rights, where this is strong-arm racketeering that's taking people's properties using code enforcement or whatever means. The government is taking people's property against their will and then selling it, okay, for their own personal gain. And during the meantime, you know, when you got up there and you got elected, I said, you know, hey, look, all I need you to do is get me in touch with the sheriff's department, you know, and get me in touch with somebody that recognizes capital felonies. And what's happened? Have you done it? No. The whole world gets to see you, Mayor, sit there and not be able to contact the sheriff's department on Panama City Beach when we're dealing with such, or in Bay County, when we're just dealing with such serious issues as I've been forced to repeat myself over and over again with the children, the stealing of the properties, and all the criminal acts that's come personally against me. And they stopped me from seeing President Trump. That's because they don't want the energy inventions or to better our nation, you know? And then you give Officer Telemonte back there a reward for the ability to communicate with other freaking entities. And y'all haven't done anything. You know, got the surf rescue, what do? Y'all run. Y'all run. You know, and I'm trying to do something now with the surf rescue, and when I ask y'all to see it, nobody looks at it. So I'm having to do everything I can to do better for what's, you know, the people. But you know, does it do any good? Y'all get back up there, you know, the Constitution and Bill of Rights is what keeps y'all in check. I've said that 1,000 times. But you get on your ivory tower, and what do you concern yourself with? Pigs. Pigs and chickens. You know, oh yeah, then I have to tell myself, I have to remind myself, who was it, Corporal Chance? It's just sadomasochism and bestiality, you know? And then we got this guy right here, I think it was his friend over there.
Sir, please address the council.
Okay, well, the lawyer, you know, his friend was over there at the Last Supper of the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. It looked like him anyway, dressed as a woman.
Sir,
Huh?
Sir, please avoid the insult.
Well, I'm just saying, when you got people that can't figure out basics, that's how we end up with stupidity. And we got people that don't figure out basics in our government that's allowed it to get to such an extent that I can't get a cop to recognize the fact of what they did to the child in front of me, which still haunts me. You know? And then on top of that, we got the issues of the capital felonies that you're supposed to be getting me in touch with the sheriffs with. You know?
Thank you, sir. Further public comment?
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hey, so my name's Jared Nance. Just wanted to bring it to your attention, we do have an issue in our neighborhood, Gulf Highlands 2.
Jerry, would you mind speak up just a little bit?
Yes, sir. My name's Jared Nance. We do have an issue in our neighborhood with people well, having short-term rentals when they should not in the Gulf Highlands too. And so just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's just become more prevalent, and people are abusing, that restriction that we have. I believe in the covenants, you're not supposed to have a short-term rental that's less than 6 months, is my understanding. So just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dance. Further public comment on consent and non-agenda items? Okay. Mr. Whitman, would you please respond?
Yeah, I'm going to go backwards on this one. If Mr. Vance could get up with me or Mel Leonard and give me the address, we can verify if that's a short-term rental property or not. And then we can take care of it, because in certain neighborhoods, you cannot have short-term rentals, so we will address that. So if he could get with me or Mel Leonard, we'll address that. Back to Ms. Pat at 513 Dogwood. I understand her concerns. I had a meeting with Ms. Hatcher. She has the same concern. I talked to Mel Leonard. This is about the vehicles in the driveways that are not movable. Ms. Hatcher had the same concerns. I met with her. I talked to Mel Leonard today. We're going to try to look at something to put more teeth in the ordinance and bring it back to the council so we can get rid of some of these old cars that are just sitting on people's yard or boats that are not being moved. So that's something we'll bring to you in the future after I get something from staff and work it with legal. We'll bring it back to you, your one-on-ones, to see if that's something you want to address.
Okay.
The second lady talked. I'll give all the credit for the mayor on that one. He's the one that asked us to do YouTube in the assisted hearing, so I take credit for nothing. That's all the mayor and the council, and that's all I have.
I will say for Mr. Beck, we have repeatedly attempted to put him in touch with the sheriff's office, and I believe even Chief Morgan talked to him about his surf rescue item. So, okay. Next up is the consent agenda. Ms. Fazzoni, would you please read the consent agenda?
Revision to the master audit list to remove obsolete items.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fazzoni, please call the roll.
Councilmember Casto.
Yes,
Councilman
ma'am.
Casto, sorry. Councilmember Coburn.
Yes.
Councilman Register.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor German.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, next up is the regular agenda. First one is ordinance 1649. Mr. Davis.
An ordinance of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 5, Article 2 of the city's Code of Ordinances related to animal control, amending the requirements for keeping livestock or fowl in city limits, repealing the licensure requirements for the keeping of dogs and cats, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, scrivener's errors, liberal interpretation, modifications, codifications, and providing for an effective date. This is your, I don't know how many times you've seen this, but this is your final time seeing this, assuming you don't make any changes. And I can explain any further if you'd like me to.
Could just give a one-sentence summary.
Yeah, so you are, you have changed the requirements for licensure of keeping chickens to being only based on essentially permission-based from your neighbors. So once your neighbor gives permission, your license is good for as long as that permission lasts or until your neighbor moves, and you got to go get permission from your new neighbors. And then there's no longer a license for dogs and cats.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Any discussion from the council?
Motion to approve. Second.
Yes, sir.
Okay. With this issue, I couldn't figure, my name's Captain Gary Wayne Beck. I live at 2601 Beach Street. With this issue, I couldn't figure out exactly what y'all was talking about until a gentleman by the name of Redneck or Philip had came back down the road with two pot-bellied pigs underneath each arm. And when I asked him where he got them from, he said he got them from the Gossip Ship, AKA Blue Top Waffle House. And he said that Jim was pimping them out. Is it true that y'all guys are pimping out, they're pimping out pigs and y'all made it legal for animals now? Or, and Jason Arthur Carter wants it to know if it's okay to still screw a duck and screw a guinea.
Sir.
That's all I need to say.
Okay. Any further public comment? We have a motion on the table
And I think I have a second, please.
and a second.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Fazzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Casto.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn.
Yes.
Councilman Register.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor German.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, next up is ordinance 1651. Mr. Davis.
An ordinance of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, amending Section 7-3 of the city's charter related to the conduct of municipal elections, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, scrivener's errors, liberal interpretation, modifications, codification, effect on existing terms, and providing for an effective date. This is your first reading of this ordinance. You've discussed it previously, and it amends your charter to change the election date to coincide with the state and federal general election. There is one point of direction I would like from the council today. In looking at the issues revolving around this, the law allows 10 days for certification of the election. The way that the election falls in November and your meeting in November falls, the election will have been held but not certified by the time you get to your November meeting. If you'll recall, your charter only requires one meeting in November, and typically you have canceled the second meeting because it would typically fall on Thanksgiving. So you have two options as far as how you want to handle your November meeting as it relates to election cycles. You could either have the newly electeds seated at your first regular meeting in December, which would be consistent with your charter as written, or we could amend your meeting ordinance to have the November meeting held the first Thursday after certification, and in the event that happens, that falls on Thanksgiving, we would move it one more week to the 5th meeting in November. I've run through about the next 30 years of elections, and most of the time that meeting would fall on the third Thursday of the month. There are two elections in which we would have to move it to the 5th Thursday of the month.
Okay, thank you. Before we do discussion, any public comment on this item?
Rex Lee Reed, Gulf Lane. First, I think this is a really bad idea, and he just actually gave me another reason, because what the charter already says. But more importantly, this was bandied about, if I'm not mistaken, about 4 years ago. And when we had a male SOE, a former neighbor Seal, he came up and said the exact same thing that our new SOE said, that this is a very bad idea. But somehow, he was not challenged on that, but it appears as though that some are going to challenge him now. Second, we don't want as the SOE alluded, we don't really want people voting, to be honest, on the city council that don't pay close enough attention, who are not motivated enough to drive 4 or 5 miles to vote at the Lindell Center that is open for a week to vote early. This is what is wrong with DC. Too many people voting that don't know what they're voting for. We want the people that are actively engaged in the city, the ones that are willing to take that whole 5 minutes to decide who represents us. And just as important, this will now put that council member or new mayor one budget cycle behind. So their first year in office will be virtually cast for them, so that they don't have any say in how the budgeting of the city goes. All around it is a bad idea, but the most appalling point of it is you're taking advantage of our new SOE, who has told you point blank, this is a bad idea. There will be undervotes. I was the only person, there was one other person in the voting booth with me yesterday. And they came to the person that was counting their ballot and said exactly this: I didn't vote on the last item because I didn't know who it was. And that's where you'll be on the ballot, along with all the constitutional amendments, making the SOE's job harder and making it more confusing for the voter. This is not advancing democracy. This is trying to rig it. And the people object. There was no call to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Further public comment? Okay, no further public comment. I will say, personally, I would like to see the ordinance with the adjustment, because I'd like to review the adjustment. I'm sure Mr. Davis's future prognostications.
Already got it in here.
Yeah, but I would like to see this all wrapped up as a package.
We'll have a second reading.
Well, so let me clarify something. If you want to change the November meeting date, I will need to bring this back to you 2 more times.
2 more times?
Because I'll have to change
And
the
you'll see.
title. And just,
All right.
I'm happy to go with
Yeah,
the mayor
so-
and do that. Is that okay?
But we don't have to change the November date, just leave it where it's in
Well, no,
December
no,
then, right?
yes, you can either just not leave it as is, and then the newly electeds would take office on the first regular meeting in December, or you can change it, you can move your November meeting to later in the month, so that way it would be after the certification happens.
And that would take another reading, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So really, the question today is, which route do we want to take
Yes.
Yes, sir.
in doing this?
Yeah,
Is that-
yeah.
Okay.
I say leave it just like the charter is now, and let them take office in December. Then we don't have to do another reading on it. Is that right?
I'd rather do it in December than to try to schedule it during the holidays, when it's going to be really difficult, and a lot of people like to travel during that time to be with family.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so my preference would certainly not to have a lame duck, because what we would have is, pretty much every year, we'd have now a lame duck in November.
Correct.
Where
You
we
only have one meeting, Mayor, in November anyhow, because of Thanksgiving, so it's not like we're going to be meeting again in November. Yeah, so I think it's.
Can you
a no-brainer.
explain this a little more? Because I think the mayor's actually right on this. I think that
Yeah.
he's definitely right on the
Yeah.
lame duck meeting. I'm trying to get a better understanding of this for myself, but
Sure.
can you?
Yes, sir. So the way that the calendar, and it's hard to explain this without a calendar up there.
I'm looking
but-
at one.
Okay, you've got a calendar up there. Okay, so the November election happens on the first Tuesday after the first Monday. Your regularly scheduled November meeting is on the second Thursday. Because it takes 10 days to certify the election results for the November election, and that is by state statute. I did discuss this with Supervisor of Elections Ward this afternoon to confirm that my understanding is correct. Invariably, your November meeting on the second Thursday of November will be after your municipal election, but before the certification happens. And we don't, by charter, you don't seat the newly elected until after the certification. Your charter says that the elected official takes their seat at the first regular meeting after the certification of the election. So you're going to have a bubble where invariably your first meeting in November will be from the old council, even though the election has happened.
And yeah, I'm leaning, now that I have that clarification, yeah, I'd like to see us move it to November then.
Move the November meeting back, essentially.
Correct.
So they would get
After
seated in
it's-
November still.
Absolutely, yes.
That's the direction I need.
I personally
hold
rather
on.
just let it, not change, try to change it, just let it go to December. You only talk for 2 or 3 weeks, and we don't have a meeting the end of November anyhow, because of Thanksgiving.
That's right, because it falls right into the holiday.
Yeah, I don't think we should call everybody in around Thanksgiving. Just wait another week. When would it be in December, the first meeting?
It'll be the second Thursday in December.
What date is that? The
That's-
10th?
Oh,
It's generally somewhere around the 10th.
The 12th.
The 12th?
Yes, sir.
well, it would be this year, if we were having the election this year, it would be the 12th.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I just don't want to drag it out another meeting. This is the third time we've talked about this.
But it wouldn't.
If we leave it as is and with.
I would ask the council to please ask for the floor. Yeah.
If we leave it as the charter is, can this be the first reading, or we still got to bring it back?
If you leave it, if you seat the new electeds in December, if that's okay with you, then we would only need 2 readings of this ordinance. If you would like to move the November meeting so that way the new elected is seated in November, then we will need 1 more reading because it will change the title, and by statute, if I change the title, I have to read it again.
Yeah, can I say something, I think, to clarify here? In general, the meeting would work, but there are just a few times when, because of the calendar, there'll be cases in which the second Thursday is not 10 days away. And in those few times, I think the next one, I believe, will be the 2028.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then the next one significantly farther away. In those few times, the suggestion would be to move the first council meeting passed, just to address this issue. And what it does is avoid having a lame duck meeting every year.
Correct.
And so, we don't have lame duck meetings now. My preference would be to adjust this to, not have a lame duck meeting, and then, once every 4 or 8 year, several election cycles, you'd have this one meeting, but in general, it would still work. Like, we'd still make the second. It's just, this year happens to be a bad one because the elections, or the November starts on a Friday. But I think if November starts on a Thursday or Friday, I think that's it. That's when we would push it to the end of the month. But otherwise, everything would work. So, my preference is to just address this all as one package. I totally get the concern about having another reading about it, but let's just, I don't like lame duck meetings, and so if we're gonna vote on it, let's just vote on it all as a package.
Well, I guess it comes down to me. I'm not too keen on a lame duck meeting either. I understand the simplicity of just leaving it as is and going into December, but my preference would be to alter it to November, to change it to where there's not a lame duck meeting.
I would ask for a motion to approve with that direction, if however.
A motion to change the ordinance to include the November meeting date change so that there is not a lame duck meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Ms. Pizzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
No,
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Tedmer?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay.
Next, number 3, we deleted the right-of-way ordinance. Number 4 is Resolution 24165. Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving a combined task order and notice to proceed with Gemini Engineering and Sciences, Inc. for the stormwater water quality investigation related to Lowwater Lake Basin in the amount not to exceed $425,000.
Okay. Ms. Younce, would you please come and tell us about this item? It was most of the packet this time, I think. It was a short meeting, so, yeah.
So this is the design task order for Gemini to actually, after they get the remainder of the samples in and analyze, to actually start the design work for this grant.
Okay. And the grant is for?
The grant is for the restoration and cleanup water quality within the low water basin.
Okay. Is there any public, thank you, Ms. Younce.
Is there any public?
Thank you. Is there any, I'm going to ask for public comment, and then
Oh, okay.
I'm sure we'll have questions. I know I certainly have
Thank
questions
you.
on this, but we want to get public comment first. Is there any public comment on this item? Any public comment? All right, well, you didn't have to go far. So I have a few questions, so if anyone wants to talk first.
go for it.
All right. How is this funded?
So this task order will be fully reimbursable under the Florida Department of Environmental Protection grant.
Okay, so we got a grant for that, nice.
Yes.
And what is the length of the agreement?
So the initial agreement with FDEP was executed in March of 2024, and then the end date for right now is March of 2026.
Okay. So about a year?
Yeah, 2 years.
No, 2 years, I'm sorry. I can't do, it's all that date math that Davis was giving us. It says there's no liquidated damages if the contract does not complete in time. Why did we go that route?
Generally, we do not charge consultants liquidated damages. It's more the construction side.
Okay. Will the weir impact the sampling at all? If so, how?
So right now, the samples that were taken, the two set of samples that were taken were prior to the weir construction, and the third sample will be after the weir is completed and the lake has restored back to its original balance.
Okay. I'll just note that the contract they sent us, the year for the task order for task 2 needs to be updated.
And I think Lynn.
There
gave
you
you a copy
No,
of
that was on our side in the contract.
Oh, and the actual.
If you go to task 2,
I
it
see
looks
it.
like they sent us
Okay.
maybe a copy and pasted contract, or maybe they were really excited and wanted to.
They
do it
were
earlier this year.
excited.
So I'll just note that that needs to be updated before we go forward. I know there's Scrivener's errors. We can do that. The big task seems to be task 4. Could you give us and the public kind of an overview of that task?
I sure can. It actually includes several items, like you said, the vegetation and sediment management, which, and it is a little bit confusing. The first part of it is in between the lakes, in what we call the connection between the lakes. You'll have to do vegetation removal and sedimentation removal in order to allow that connectivity between the 2 lakes to function like it was supposed to do or has done previous years. Since the vegetation took hold, sediment piles up and it kind of restricts that flow. So it's kind of helping the hydrology of that portion. The second task is more inside the lake. There's a ton of vegetation. We did meet with a couple of specialists. They told us don't remove all of it, then you're going to have an algae problem. So we kind of have to balance between how much vegetation we remove and not create a new problem. The third task is dredging, and it really depends on the money. Do we have enough money to do additional dredging other than the interconnection between the lakes? And if we do, we will utilize it in the areas, the strategic areas that we actually need to remove sediment to help the flow. Best management practices, we're looking at possibly floating wetlands, baffle boxes, and what can we help to kind of build on the restoration of the actual basin of those lakes. The Lakeview Circle Emergency Access, that was if we did receive the additional 1.5. We did not receive the additional 1.5. It was going to help a restriction in a culvert. It used to be a bridge. They ripped out the bridge because it was a wooden bridge, and they turned it into a culvert, a much smaller culvert, so it restricted the flow. So with that additional money not coming to us, we won't be able to work on that particular item.
Okay, and so just for the folks following along, we had hoped to get an additional 1.5 million in funding, and that has not come through. I think it was it vetoed?
Yeah, it was vetoed.
It was vetoed. We're still working on that, but that's the 1.5 Ms. Yance was talking about. Thank you.
And
Sorry,
of course,
continue.
permitting, we have to go through all the regulatory agencies. We cannot move forward, even bidding into construction, until we've gotten approval from all of them through permitting. Once we complete our initial design, after we have the samples, they're analyzed, and once we complete the design, we'll submit to those agencies, and they'll kind of give us feedback on things that we need to revise, things they would like to see, and then they'll permit us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You just mentioned permitting, so this may be held up by permitting.
Yes,
right?
that is correct.
Can you ask them to go really fast?
I can. Don't know if they'll listen, but I can.
All right, that's it for me. Anything else from the council?
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It is very
Worked
exciting.
hard to try and secure this first set of funding, and hopefully we'll be able to get the rest of it and do some work at Low-Water Lake.
All right.
Big deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Been
Mark.
working so hard on it, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Nels. Any discussion from the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Fazzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, next up, Resolution 24166. Mr. Davis, can you please
A
read?
resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving an agreement with Capitol Hill Consulting Group, LLC, for federal legislative and executive branch representation services in the monthly amount of $7,500.
Okay, Mr. Whitman, would you please describe the,
Yeah, this would be going to our 4th year with Capitol Hill. They've been doing a great job for us. So first 3 years, they've helped to secure federal funds for our water redundancy system. As of today, with their help and the assistance from our U.S. Congressman, we've been able to secure $6.5 million for our water redundancy system for the island.
great. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any public comment. Any discussion from the council or any questions? I was going to ask what they delivered, but you already answered that. So, it sounds like it's worth the money.
Yes, sir, it is.
Absolutely.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Fazzoni, please call the roll.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor German?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Tettemer?
Yes, ma'am. All right. I think we may have set a record on this one. We'll see. Next up is item 6, Resolution 24167. Mr. Davis.
Casto doesn't even have a haircut today.
Well, we still try to keep it short.
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving an agreement with Florida Power and Light Company for the undergrounding of overhead electric distribution facilities located in Front Beach Road, Segment 4.2, in the total amount of $1,083,935.
Okay. Mr. Scott, would you be so kind as to come up and explain this item?
Certainly, Council. This is another step in progress toward being able to construct segments 4.1 and 4.2. So before you this evening is the undergrounding agreement with Florida Power and Light for segment 4.2. We've previously executed 4.1, so we have got construction plans from them, and they have given us an estimate, which is before you, including some restoration cost credits for performing their portion of the work that will be done during the construction project. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any?
Yeah, I go.
Yeah.
Mr. Passmore, not in relation to FPL, because I know they've been fairly responsive with our projects. Have we reached out to the other utility contractors in 4.1, 4.2 to make sure that they are a little more responsive than what we've been used to?
Yes, sir. So at this time, we have tasked our engineering teams with the preparation of utility work schedules, which is consistent with statewide practice for determining the timing and commitments from those utilities to perform their utility relocation work during construction. So we're identifying any conflicts that we have with our work and with city utility work ahead of time, and we will set timeframes, and that will, of course, build into determining our construction schedule, which I think I've told you previously would expect to be a long duration or an extended duration because of the resolution of all those conflicts. But we are in that process now. I will tell you that some of the utilities have changed personnel, and we've seen some improvements in response. Particularly, I will call out Comcast has done a much better job. WOW has an engineering team that they've hired to assist our engineering team with that evaluation. So the pressure certainly, I think, has been heard by them. AT&T has had some personnel changes, and they have some significant conflicts in segment 4.2 that we're working through at present time as we work toward going to construction. So I can report to you that process has improved, and we expect it to be improved on the next project.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Other questions from the council? Are you sure? Because I got a list. Okay, you mentioned the $1.2 million. We got a credit. How do we get that credit?
So the FPL, under their tariff agreement, I know that's another potential question, is under their tariff agreement, they provide a credit. It's called avoided storm restoration cost. And so what that is it's a present value of their existing facilities that they calculate if a storm were to come, what would it cost them to restore those overhead facilities, and they credit that back to us. We are required to pay, of course, under that same agreement for the undergrounding, but they give you a credit back for that. So that's what that is. It's a calculation that's determined by their agreement with Florida Public Service Commission.
Okay, so because we're hardening those utilities, if a storm were to come, we would be saving them money, and so we're getting
Yes,
a
sir,
bit of
and
a
they credit that back to you.
Okay, and yeah, you mentioned the tariff there. Could you?
Sure.
That's
So
like throughout the
every
agreement,
every utility that's governed by Florida Public Service Commission negotiates an agreement and submits their rates and their schedules for approval by that state entity. And we are subject then to those rules and requirements. So there's Section 12 of their agreement with the Florida Public Service Commission governs that underground utility. That can be found on FPL's website. And so that's approved by the state.
Okay. It states in this agreement, I think the cover letter says the cost assumes the following: customer performs some work. Is that a term of art, or is that, it just seems a little vague.
It allows, the agreements allow the city the option to have FPL construct the entirety of the facility or to perform some work at its option. So the split that we have consistently negotiated both with Gulf Power and now with FPL is we're installing their physical underground infrastructure. So that would be the conduits, the vaults, all of the, basically the underground work that you don't see. We're installing that, and there's some good reasons for that, because we can do a better job of coordinating that during construction. We're not subject to scheduling of their crews. Our contractor can take control of that, and so that's been done on both segments 2 and 3 and is effective. And the other thing to consider is that you've applied and we've received grants from Department of Emergency Management to help pay for all of that. So those costs are being offset. So rather than pay FPL where we couldn't recover those through the grants, we're able to get that paid for through those grants that the city's received. So overall, it's a good deal.
Yeah.
FPL will not permit typically the installation of the live conductors on their system. And obviously, it's more dangerous work, and so we have them do that,
Okay.
and they keep control of that.
Okay, yeah, thanks for helping me understand that. It also states that all work is performed during daylight hours, which is Monday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And construction at night is an additional expense. You know, when I talk to people, they've regularly asked me, why isn't the construction happening off-season at night? Do you know how much the additional expense would be for that?
I don't at this time. If that's the pleasure of council, we can certainly ask for that increased cost, and that would obviously need to be borne by the city. So if that's the pleasure of council, we can certainly take that back. My recommendation would be go ahead and proceed with this, and then we can always go back and ask them to amend that and give us that additional cost and possibly execute an amended agreement to do the night work. But they would have to calculate that and tell us.
Okay.
It's mostly FPL, they have mostly union crews, and so they have contracts with their workers. So night work is typically pretty pricey for
Okay.
FPL to perform that.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yes, sir.
Where, do you usually see an issue with the utility, and with, say, FPL, with running their utilities and in affecting traffic or something like that? I'm usually used to seeing it with like hard road construction or the digging. I'm just asking you, because if it is, then I'm all for it. So
I would say it would depend on the timing of the work. Generally, the work will proceed with their infrastructure construction in the first phase on the south side of Front Beach Road, since the poles currently run on the north side. If we try to do that during our maintenance of traffic, it may be advantageous to have them perform that at night, get it done faster. If we're willing to wait until we have the entire road in place and we have the auxiliary lanes available for them, it shouldn't affect traffic for what FPL needs to do, because we could impact or close those lanes once we have the road in its final configuration. So
depends on where
I
you
would
put
say
it
the
on.
timing, it's the timing, it depends.
okay.
What's the approximate length of 4.2? Is it a mile?
The overall 4.1, 4.2 combined is about 5 miles, and I believe each segment's about half of that roughly. I could give you the exact, but it's pretty
So
close to
this $1 million for this agreement for the conversion, how much is it running per mile to go from
We divide
overhead
that by
to
2.5
underground?
miles. I'm not great at math in my head, but basically if you take the total cost, but divided by about 2.5 miles is the rough per mile cost.
I think it's worth it though, because of the storms, the hardening it, because that's,
Definitely.
protect it more. So takes a lot longer to install it and repair it, but it doesn't get damaged as much when it's underground.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say, if it proves to be advantageous to have them work at night, then I'd like for us to be brought those numbers.
Yeah, I certainly would be, my opinion on this would be, per Mr. Scott's suggestion, go ahead and execute this agreement, and then also bring us an amended agreement, just so we could see what those numbers are, so we can make the call, and especially if it's, ends up happening during the season, we may want to kind of prioritize speed over cost efficiency.
Right. Time is money.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to know, does it have to all be night work, or can you pick and choose when you want to do the night work? So can we logistically think through the things that are going to have the most traffic impacts and move those items to evening work and work through this intelligently, and things that have the most impact on our residents and visitors? Or is this going to be we look at a wholehearted number that just moves everything at night?
I think we would have to have those discussions with FPL and do a little more coordination, if that's the pleasure of council. We should be able to coordinate that. We have a lot of moving parts still as we move toward the final construction. As I indicated, we're doing work schedules with all of the utilities, so we have to plan that out a little better. We're still having those conversations, but certainly it can be portions.
I mean,
that makes sense.
I would think that you're obviously very good at this, and we've learned from other segments, and we're learning as we go, and we're getting more intelligent on the CRA and the construction of this, and obviously you and your team do an incredible job. But I think we can work through it more intelligently and get us a good number that's probably is worth the money to spend to lessen the burden on our community and our residents.
I hear that.
Okay.
I also think we need to be sensitive to our residents and our guests for that nighttime noise.
Yes, ma'am.
I inadvertently stayed in a hotel where they were doing road construction out in front, not knowing that it was going to go on all night, not even knowing there was going to be road construction there, and it was pretty miserable.
Yeah, we face those challenges on Alf Coleman. I think the trick is that commercial areas tend to do better if you work at night, because they tend to be less active, but you do have a lot of hotel and residential properties on Front Beach Road, and that would be my main concern. And we probably bring back and caution you that we do get a lot of complaints about that. You've got tourists that are staying, and that's not the way they want to spend their vacation, is listening to construction noise at night. I think it's just I understand what the request is. We have to look at it and come back with some intelligent suggestions on what to do, where to do it, and what that's going to cost.
Exactly. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for all your hard work, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple more that were blank in the agreement on page 2. Are we picking up the materials or having them delivered?
So for the work that the city is performing, that will be part of the construction contract. We're typically working under, the city purchases those materials to achieve sales tax savings, and so those are FOB or delivered to the site by those vendors. For the FPL materials, they bring those with them or they have them delivered.
Okay,
under
thank
their
you.
portion.
And finally, it says on page 4 of the agreement, it says completion of work and ownership. That still needs to be filled in. So when would the deadline be for that one?
It would be, all of this work would be put on a work schedule with FPL, which is also part and parcel to this agreement. So the specifics of the timing of the work will be, again, part of the construction contract. The contractor will have that information, and then they would be responsible for coordination of the work during construction. So it will be during the 4 years or so that we're estimating for the total construction duration, and obviously the last year or so of that we're expecting to be mostly the conversion work.
Okay. And then finally, the agreement refers to an Exhibit A and an Exhibit B. I understand we try to save some trees here, and maybe
Yes.
Exhibit A and Exhibit B would be too much to put in the packet, but where would the public be able to access Exhibit A and
So
Exhibit
we
B?
put a few copies in the back of the room tonight. It's mainly the FPL plans and their specification references, and of course, they have detailed specifications for the company. I'd be happy to, if any public is interested, they can email CRA@pcbfl.gov. We'll be happy to provide those as a public records request.
Okay. And I will say, before I got elected, I submitted many public records requests to the CRA, and you guys are extremely responsive. I really appreciate it.
I feel like that's our job, is to be out there and tell the public what's going on.
Okay.
You guys are doing great. Thank you.
So I think I heard, go forward with this, and then also direct staff to see what it would cost to do night work so that we can pick and choose should that become, just see what our options are and see what the costs of our options are.
And detail the benefit and like how many days less it will take to do it that way and
Yeah.
lay it out for
I'd
us.
like to try to, if you give me like 30 days to bring that back, I have to have some discussion, so.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine with me.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay. All sorts of seconds. Ms. Vizzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Cober?
Yes.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Tettemer?
Yes, ma'am. There goes the regular agenda. Next up is the city manager's report. Mr. Whitman, anything to report?
All I want to say is make sure you guys have a safe trip down to the League of Cities Conference, and if you need anything on the way down there, give me a call, because I'm going to head out a day before you guys head out.
Thank you. Next up is the city attorney's report. Mr. Davis, is there anything to report?
Nothing to report.
I don't know why you're grinning. Okay.
Can't you have a report?
I mean, you want me to make one up? Sure. I was not at the Last Supper.
Yeah, well, bill us for it.
No, these are flat fee for.
Yeah, this is
Oh, this is flat fee, then we definitely.
you take advantage.
All right, the council comments, we'll just go straight down. Councilmember Colbert?
I don't have anything today, thank you.
Okay.
Just excited. It's got some kids in the room, so that was kind of exciting. Excited to have those guys here, and I'm sure you guys start school Monday, and we also I have my little girls starting school. I think that's exciting on Monday, so just remind the community to be careful while they're out. Buses will be back on the road starting Monday, and I know my kids are excited to get back to school. And I talked to a lot of families in my neighborhood that are all excited. Maybe adults are excited to get their kids back to school. So just be vigilant and looking for kids at bus stops, and I think that's important. So,
Excellent, thank you. Councilman Kessler?
Nothing from me, Mayor.
I'm good.
Vice Mayor? I just wanted to thank everyone on the council, staff, everyone for their hard work during the budget workshop that we had on Tuesday. I know it was a lot of staff work, all the directors. Finance did a great job. Thank you so much for that presentation. That's on YouTube. Also the city's website. We had it on Tuesday. There was a lot there, and I would encourage everyone to watch it. One thing I would like to highlight is the city will be developing a spay and neuter voucher program to address the feral cat problem. We're very well aware of this problem, and so we're taking action on that, and so look for that in the future. There are also new amenities coming to Frank Brown Park, including new pickleball courts and the skate park. It's election season, and we talked about elections a little bit here today, but early voting is going on now for the August primary. There's nothing on PCB on there, but it's kind of countywide. I went out to Frank Brown and voted yesterday. Early voting lasts until August 17th, and election day is the 20th, and check out bayvotes.org for more details. And I would just say I ask God to guide us as we continue to serve you, and may God bless Panama City Beach. Our next meeting is on Thursday, the 22nd at 9 a.m. Everyone please enjoy Ben Lofton and the family at Aaron Besant Park in about an hour. Thank you.
Thank you.